This is an introduction to Qal imperfect verbs. Over in the top left we see listed here the prefix consonants for all imperfects. We have an aleph, a yod, a tav, and a nun. One way to remember this is through the biblical name Eitan, which is translated Ethan, and it's spelled aleph, yod, tav, nun, Eitan. The imperfect conjugation in any imperfect verb will always begin with one of these four letters, aleph, yod, tav, nun. If you see a verb that does not begin with an aleph, yod, tav, or nun, then you are not looking at an imperfect, and that's true for Qal or any other stem. As with the perfects, we begin with the third masculine singular. We have yiktol. Yiktol. Sometimes the Qal imperfect is called the yiktol conjugation. It's also called the prefix conjugation because of these prefix consonants. So let's take a look at the complete Qal imperfect system here. And it's important to memorize these. Just recite them to yourself. We will go down through them starting with first common singular. Ektol, tiktol, tiktali, yiktol, tiktol, niktol, tiktolu, tiktolna, yiktalu, tiktolna. Once you know the Qal stem, including the perfect, the imperfect, and all the forms that are derived from the imperfect, and then a few random other forms, for the Qal, you can derive just about any other form for any other stem. So the Qals are very, very important, and it's important to memorize both the Qal perfects and the Qal imperfects. You're going to continue looking at the imperfects and how to form them. We mentioned previously that our base form is called the yiktol form, based on the 3ms, and we notice that the prefix letters, aleph, yod, tav, nun, okay, so we know that every imperfect begins with one of those, and our theme vowel is the vowel that is associated with the second root letter. And so for most of our Qal imperfects there is variation, but we will go with holum unless told otherwise. But theme vowels can appear. Sometimes they can be patach, particularly if the third root letter or second root letter is a guttural. And then we have other cases where, like the verb lamad, where it just decides that it wants to use a patach even though it doesn't have a guttural. So we have a few rebellious verbs like that. So our theme vowel is important to pay attention to, but unless otherwise noted, we'll say that it is a holum. So we'll come to our third masculine singular and form that first. So the prefix is a yod. The prefix vowel is a hirik, and then we'll see a silent schwa under the first root letter, this kof. This pattern here will be pretty invariant throughout all of them except for the one place where we have an aleph. We'll show that in a second. But the prefix vowel for a Qal imperfect will be a hirik plus a silent schwa, with one exception, and that's which we'll come to next. But first let's just mention that there are 5 forms of the Qal imperfect where there is no ending. Noted this with a null, indicating that there's no ending on these. And we'll look at those first. So the first one is the 3ms, yiktol, and the next one we'll look at is the first common singular. It has an aleph prefix, and this is the only case where the vowel varies. The aleph can be a little bit of a rebel, and so it takes a sagol, and then the kof again takes the silent schwa, and the theme vowel remains the same. It's just a holum. So we have ektol, ektol. The next that we're going to look at that has no ending is second masculine singular. The prefix here is a tav. I'll put a dagesh leni in there because it begins a word. Again we have a hirik as our prefix vowel, and again we have a silent schwa, and then our theme vowel is a holum. So we have tiktol, tiktol. Similarly, our third feminine singular down here at the bottom of the column, we have tav, hirik, silent schwa under the first root letter, and a holum as our theme vowel. Our last example of a form that does not have an ending is up here on the top right, our first common plural. The prefix is a nun, and it has the same prefix vowel, a hirik. The first root letter has a silent schwa, and the theme vowel is the same, so we have Qal. So those are the 5 examples of forms that have no ending. Now we'll look at the 3 forms that have a vocalic ending. Vocalic meaning that it's a vowel only. So the second feminine singular is the first one of those. It has a tav prefix and a hirik. The first root letter gets a silent schwa. And then the ending is a hirik yod, vocalic ending. And just as with the perfects, with a vocalic ending, the theme vowel reduces. And so rather than having a theme vowel of a holum, this reduces down to a vocal schwa, and we get tiktali, tiktali. Very similarly over here on the right-hand column, we have a second masculine plural. We'll have a tav prefix for second masculine plural, which will also take a hirik, silent schwa under the first root letter. The vocalic ending here is a shurek, and so again, vocalic ending, the theme vowel reduces to a vocal schwa, and we get tiktalu, tiktalu. And then our third masculine plural, down farther on the right-hand column, has a yod prefix, a hirik, again a silent schwa under our first root letter. The ending is the same as the second masculine plural, it's a shurek. Our theme vowel reduces to a vocal schwa, yiktalu, yiktalu. Finally, we'll look at our last 2 examples. These are our light consonantal endings. So the first one here is our second feminine plural. This has a tav prefix and the familiar hirik, followed by a silent schwa under the first root letter. And then the ending here is light consonantal in that it has a consonant and a vowel, na, and because it's light consonantal, the theme vowel does not reduce, but as we saw with the perfects, the accent recedes, in this case to the second to last syllable, and so we get tiktolna. And then the third feminine plural is identical with tik, hirik under the prefix, silent schwa, identical ending, na, theme vowel, holum, and the accent recedes. So we get tiktolna, tiktolna. So that is a summary of our imperfects. You'll need to learn the prefixes. Note that all the second person forms have tav prefixes, 2ms, 2fs, 2mp, 2fp. All the feminine forms have tav prefixes, and so 2fs, 2fp, 3fs, 3fp. And the third masculine forms have yod, 3ms, 3mp, and then our first common singular and our first common plural just sort of do their own thing. We have an aleph and we have a nun. You can probably find a better way to remember the prefixes, but that's just one.